The series starts with Zhao Nian being kidnapped by Gong Chu, a rich and powerful businessman. He demands to know where the child is that she supposedly had 3 years ago. Zhao Nian, confused, insists she has never met Gong Chu. Gong Chu's secretary Feng De uses a lie detector to question her about where she was on New Year's Eve 3 years ago. Zhao Nian explains she was working as a waitress at a party that night. Feng De then reveals that his boss had been drugged and assaulted at that event. Then they are blaming Zhao Nian for it. After confirming that she is telling the truth, Feng De informs Gong Qiu, but Gong Qiu, still convinced she's lying, orders the questioning to continue. Several days go by and Zhao Nian is still held captive. She struggles to remember what happened at the party, but eventually recalls being with a co-worker named Tanjus who could prove her innocence. However, Feng warns her that convincing Gong Qiu won't be easy because he has personality disorders and becomes obsessed once he thinks someone is guilty. That night, Gong Qiu confronts Zhao Nian, insisting she is the woman he was with 3 years ago. Zhao Nian calmly tells him he's mistaken, which angers Gong Qiu. He orders Feng to leave her in the forest the next day to starve. Desperate, Zhao Nian begs Feng to let her make one last phone call to her family, but instead she calls Qiu, the man she loves. Her heart breaks when Qiu shows no concern for her. The next day, Zhao Nian, exhausted from wandering, collapses as she had been kept in a remote castle far from the city. Just when it seems all is lost, Gong Qiu rescues her. When she wakes up, Zhao Nian insists she can prove she's not the woman he's looking for, and Gong Qiu allows her to leave to find Tenji. During her search, she meets Qiu, who reveals he is about to get married, causing her to accidentally break a valuable vase worth 20,000 yuan, a sum she can't afford. She calls Feng De for help, who soon arrives with Gong Qiu. The scene changes as Zhao Nian is forced to sign a contract binding her to Gong Qiu until she can prove her innocence. Otherwise, she owes 10 million yuan. Reluctantly, Zhao Nian signs. Not knowing this also means she has to live with Gong Qiu. Unhappy with the castle, Zhao Nian is moved to a house where she must cook because Gong Qiu dislikes the food his servants make. On the day of King Qiu's wedding, Zhao Nian is heartbroken, especially when she finds out the bride is her sister Shirdi, who also reveals she is pregnant. During the ceremony, Gong Qiu unexpectedly arrives to take Zhao Nian away, causing her to hide. She ends up running into King Qiu, who appears to be in poor health. Later, Zhao Nian goes to the beach and meets Gong Qiu. She shares her feelings of loneliness, which stem from being adopted. Suddenly, Qiu disappears and Zhao Nian rushes to find him, eventually discovering him in the forest. When others arrive, Qiu, thinking she is at fault, hits her. Shortly after, Feng De finds her, and she explains that Qiu was once blind and she had taken care of him. They fell in love, but after Qiu had surgery and regained his sight, he lost his memory and turned to Shirdi. When Zion tried to help him remember, her parents accused her of trying to steal her sister's boyfriend and threw her out of the house. Feng De takes Zion back to Gong Qiu, who gets angry when she continues to deny having his child. He leaves her on the roadside, where her friends eventually rescue her. At that moment, Gong Qiu shows up and violently attacks one of her friends, leaving him in the hospital. He warns Zhao Nian to stay away from other men. Qiu is also there, and Zhao Nian asks him to look into Tanji. They arrange to meet at an amusement park, a place they had once promised to visit together. The events from 3 years ago replay as Gong Qiu takes Zhao Nian to a party as his partner. She meets Tenji and begs her to tell what happened at that party 3 years ago. To her surprise, Tenji claims she never saw Zhao Nian there. Gong Qiu then takes Zhao Nian to a private room, telling her that he will make her remember what she did to him. Zhao Nian continues to insist she is innocent and pleads for her freedom. Instead of letting her go, Gong Qiu admits that he won't release her because he loves her. The next day, Zhao Nayan meets with her mother, who demands that she sign a document cutting all ties with the family to settle things with her sister. With a heavy heart, Zhao Nayan signs, feeling deeply betrayed. To cheer her up, Gong Chu takes time off work. Lan brings her to the beach where they enjoy the peaceful view together. Later, she feels an urge to do some graffiti and finds a bag of paint by chance. She starts painting and Gong Chu joins her. They are watched by Luo Kai, who had placed the paint there, knowing Zhao Nayan would feel low after signing the document. The scene shifts to Gong Chu giving Zhao Nayan a diamond ring. When she rejects it, he angrily throws the ring away. As Zhao Nayan goes to pick it up, she sees Tang Yi in the distance and decides to follow her. She tracks Tang Yi to a restaurant, where she overhears a conversation between Tang Yi and Shirdi about the events from 3 years ago. Before she can hear more, Fengda arrives and takes her back home. Determined to hack into Shirdi's phone, Zhao Nayan suggests the idea to Gong Chu, who, thinking she wants revenge, agrees to help. He gives her a device to connect to Shirdi's phone, allowing Zhao Nayan to spy on her. She successfully hacks the phone and finds out that Shirdi plans to meet Tendi again at a hotel. Zioyan decides to follow them and runs into Qin Chu, who also wants to find out the truth. Together, they overhear that 3 years ago Shirdi paid Tenji to drug Zioyan so she would sleep with a millionaire at the party. Later, Zioyan listens to the recordings from the hacked phone and hears Qin Chu confronting Shirdi, revealing that he has regained his memory and knows she isn't pregnant. Anxious, Zhao Nayan calls Kainkyu to meet and confirm if he remembers the promise he made to her. When they meet, Kainkyu tells her that his promise was to be her family and assures her that Gongkyu won't come between them because he discovered that the woman he was with 3 years ago was actually Tengi. Determined to find out the truth, they confront Tengi, who admits that she took half of the pills Shirdi gave her, hoping to sleep with a millionaire to improve her life. However, she's scared to tell Gongkyu that she has his child, fearing he might harm the child. Kainkyu believes that revealing the truth might help in treating the child's illness. Zionian hesitates to tell Gongkyu, but when questioned she has no choice but to confess everything. Gongkyu refuses to believe her and insists on taking the child for a DNA test. This makes Tenji panic because although she did sleep with Gongchu, the child isn't his. She lied because Kinkyu promised to help treat the child's illness. Angry at being deceived, Zionian confronts Kinkyu, asking why he lied. He explains that he hoped this would make her distance herself from Gongchu, sensing that she might actually want to stay with him. At that moment, Gongchu arrives and, upon discovering Kainchu's secret meetings with Zionayan, starts to beat him. Zionayan tries to stop Gongchu, but in the struggle, she loses consciousness. When she wakes up, she learns that Tang Yi and her child have been released and that Kainchu is unharmed. Soon after, Zionayan is summoned by her mother, who gives her pills that make her faint. When she wakes up, she sees Gongchu, and under the influence of the aphrodisiac pills, she tries to kiss him, her vision filled with butterflies. The next morning, she finds out that her mother and sister have been arrested because of the pills. When she visits Qin Chu, she tells him that she needs some time alone and plans to go on a trip, but promises to return. After her mother and sister are released, Zuerdi gives a public interview where she begs Zionayan to return her husband, revealing that he has asked for a divorce. This causes a public outcry, with people accusing Zionayan of stealing her sister's husband. Overwhelmed by the harsh backlash, Zionayan has a panic attack. Just when she feels completely lost, Gongchu arrives unexpectedly and takes her back home. Traumatized by the attack, Zionayan goes into shock and stops speaking. The psychiatrist advised Gongkyu that she should be near someone she loves to help her recover. Gongkyu stays by her side, but when her condition doesn't improve, he brings her to Kinkyu, thinking he might be the one she needs. However, Zayo Nayan's heart remains with Gong-kyu. Through the hypnosis session, she eventually regains her speech, but decides to keep this a secret from Gong-chu, planning to surprise him later. Though she is caught talking to Kin-chu, Zayo Nayan reassures Gong-chu that her feelings for Kin-chu have faded and that she wants to be with him. Together, Gong-chu publicly introduces her as his wife and then takes her to watch a meteor shower. During this time, he confides in her about his brother's tragic death in an accident on the way to see the meteor shower, revealing that he has never forgiven himself for not keeping their promise to watch it together. While staying at a hotel, Zayo Nayan hears about a robbery that resulted in several missing passengers, including Kyan-kyu. Around the same time, Gong-kyu's mother Liu Kai arrives after hearing about her son's relationship. Liu Kai coldly presents Zayo Nayan with a list of women she thinks are suitable for Gong-kyu, making it clear that Zayo Nayan should step aside. However, Zayo Nayan stands firm, believing she is the only one who can bring true happiness to Gong-kyu. With Liu Kai's interference, Zayo Nayan is forced to take lessons from many tutors, leaving her completely exhausted. Seeing this, Gong-kyu takes her away for some relaxation, but he leaves her alone briefly to attend a meeting. While he's gone, Zayo Nayan sees someone in the distance and, thinking it might be Kyan-shu, follows them, only to find out it was someone else. Meanwhile, Gong-chu feels uneasy and rushes to find her with his men, but all they find is her phone. Zayo Nayan has been kidnapped by Shudi, who blames her for ruining her family and marriage, then hands her over to a group of men. The scene shifts to Zayo Nayan waking up with Gong-kyu by her side, reassuring her. He vows to take revenge on everyone who hurt her, including his mother, who planned the attack. Zayo Nayan confronts Liu Kai, telling her that the men didn't harm her, but Liu Kai dismisses her, saying no one, not even her son, will believe her. 3 weeks later, Zayo Nayan takes a pregnancy test, which turns out positive. When she tells Gong-chu, she is saddened by his unexpected reaction. Gong-chu quickly takes her to the doctor, who confirmed the pregnancy, only to find out she is 3 weeks along, which makes him angry as he suspects the baby might be a result of the assault. Zayo Nayan is heartbroken by Gong-chu's disbelief, and when he offers her a drink, she realizes he is trying to give her something to end the pregnancy, so she refuses to drink it. From that point on, Gong-kyu starts coming home drunk. During one of these times, he stumbles into Zayo Nayan's arms, expressing his feelings, and they reconcile. Zayo Nayan suggests he get treatment for his disorder, and though he resists at first, she eventually convinces him. However, she is surprised to see that the doctor is Mona, one of the women Liu Kai had picked for her son. Mona suggests staying close to them to closely monitor Gong's behavior, and since Zayo Nayan is determined to see him cured, she reluctantly agrees. One day, while Zayo Nayan is signing autographs at the launch of her new comic, her bodyguards get into an accident, causing her so much stress that she faints. Fortunately, her life is not in danger. During her time in the hospital, her friend visits and tells her a story about a girl who inserted herself into a couple's relationship by pretending to be their friend, making Zayo Nayan worry that the same could happen to her. This fear drives her to leave the hospital to find Gong-chu, only to see him dancing with Mona. In a fit of anger, she confronts and hits the man, only to realize he's not Gong-chu. Gong-chu had been planning a surprise for her, and when she finds out, he takes the opportunity to propose marriage, which Zayo Nayan happily accepts. Later, she calls Mona, accusing her of being the most deceitful person she has ever known, realizing that Mona is after Gong-kyu. Mona calmly replies that she doesn't see Zayo Nayan as competition, and that she will do whatever it takes to help Gong-kyu's behavior and demands answers from Mona. Mona simply says that Gong-kyu has realized he no longer loves Zayoan. Slowly, Gongkyu starts distancing himself from Zaoyan, eventually asking her to sign a document to end their relationship. Zaoyan initially refuses but finally agrees after seeing him bathing with Mona. Before leaving, she tells Gongkyu that no one has ever hurt her as much as he has. Zaoyan returns to live in her studio, and one day she experiences such intense pain that she passes out. When she wakes up in the hospital, she remembers someone brought her there, but she doesn't know who it was. It turns out to be Gongkyu, who deeply regrets their breakup. Just as Gongkyu is about to go after Zaoyan, he finds out that she has been kidnapped. Liu Kai is behind it, planning to keep Zaoyan until she gives birth to her grandson. Knowing his mother is responsible, Gongchu confronts her, stating that he will stay by her side until Zaoyan is found. Several months later, a doctor visits Zaoyan and tells her that he plans to reunite her with her biological family, even revealing that she has a twin brother, which makes her suspicious. Despite this, Zaoyan decides she will escape after giving birth. One night, Zaoyan overhears that Gongkyu is engaged to Mona, and the news devastates her so much that it triggers her labor. Preparations for the delivery begin. Meanwhile, Gongkyu finds out where Zaoyan is, but when he arrives, she is already gone. Zaoyan eventually wakes up to find Kainkyu by her side, who tells her that he has met her twin brother and that a nurse took him away at birth. Unfortunately, her brother was on a plane that crashed and he died, with Kainkyu being the only survivor. Since then, he has been working for her family. Kainkyu also reveals that when he tried to save her, he couldn't save her baby because Luo Kai's butler had taken the child. A year later, Zaoyan inherits a large fortune, becoming a young heiress due to her parents' wealth. While shopping, she runs into Gongchu and tells him that she hates him. Despite this, Gongchu is devastated.